Chapter 109 of Married Thrice to Salted Fish. Jiang Sheng couldn't stay outside the palace for very long. After kissing the little widow, he went to see the second young lady Gu and the third young master Gu. When he left for the northwest, these two had only been the size of fingernails, but now they are as thick and long as his fingers. It showed how much Lin Qingyu cared for them. After that, Jiang Sheng took advantage of cover of night to escape to the palace. Sha Songxi assisted him in changing his clothes. Even Lin Qingyu praised Sha Songxi for being tight-lipped. He considered this little eunuch useful. Thus, naturally, Jiang Sheng trusted him too. Sha Songxi? Sha Songxi said, "Your Majesty, go and find Shen Haoshi for Zhen." Sha Songxi was dumbstruck. It was his first time hearing His Majesty say so many words in one go, and it had none of its usual childlike tone. He sounded no different from ordinary people. Was the Emperor suddenly fully recovered? Jiang Sheng smiled. "Why, do you not understand?" Sha Songxi came back to his senses and hurriedly said, "This servant shall go immediately." Also, though Jiang Sheng's tone was gentle, it seemed to carry a hint of warning. "Zhen trusts that you won't tell anyone aside from Master Lin of what Zhen says or does within the palace." Sha Songxi gulped. "This servant is His Majesty's to command." Shen Haoshi has always been elusive. Even when tasked personally by the Emperor, Sha Songxi still had to use a lot of effort to bring him to the palace. With only an hour left before dawn, Shen Haoshi was ordered to come to Xinqing Palace. The person who sent the message said that it was the Emperor who issued the summons. But how could His Majesty want to see him for no reason? It must be Lin Qingyu using the name of the Emperor who summoned him. Lin Qingyu and the Son of Heaven. Thinking of what he'd seen just now, a haze began to cover Shen Haoshi's eyes, and he quietly clenched his hands into fists. No wonder Lin Qingyu could so calmly face the news of General Gu's death. Long before General Gu died in battle, he and the new emperor must have already been. But the general still thought of no one but Lin Qingyu. Even during his last moments, all he thought about was Lin Qingyu. Shen Haoshi forcibly suppressed the resentment in his heart and stepped into the hall. He fully expected to see Lin Qingyu inside. Unexpectedly, he was met with the sight of the emperor alone. The young man had on him the black dragon robe. He was seated atop the throne, his forehead resting against his fist, his eyes closed in a doze. Sha Songxi said, "Your Majesty, Shen Gongxi is here." Jiang Sheng opened his eyes and said with a smile, "Shen Gongxi has kept Zhen waiting." Shen Haoshi's brows furrowed slightly. He had heard that the Son of Heaven's soul-loss disease had taken a turn for the better, but a full recovery wasn't something achievable in a day. The Emperor in front of him was not at all like someone with a mental deficiency. Shen Haoshi was filled with misgivings. He brushed aside the lower hem of his robes and knelt down. "Greetings to His Majesty." Jiang Sheng said to Sha Songxi, "You go and invite the national teacher here." After Sha Songxi left, Jiang Sheng sized up Shen Haoshi and said, "Shen Gongxi doesn't seem to be in a very good mood. Master Lin returned home to the general's mansion today to attend to General Gu's funeral. Shen Gongxi must have also gone to offer his condolences. I'm a little curious. What did you see?" Shen Haoshi's eyes turned gloomy and he said in a hoarse voice, "This subordinate saw nothing." Good. Jiangxing got up and walked to the window. Looking at the grayish light off in the horizon, he suddenly said, Dawn? That's great. Shen Haoshi instinctively froze. He looked up at His Majesty, who was speaking and behaving strangely. This was the last thing Gu Fuja had said before his death, and only he knew it. The Emperor summoning him in the middle of the night and saying this sentence. Was it a coincidence, or did it have some deeper meaning? Shen Haoshi quickly came up with an answer. This sentence, though said infrequently, was common enough. Besides, it was indeed dawn, so there was nothing strange about the Emperor saying it. Jiang Sheng caught the hesitation on Shen Haoshi's face and said with a smile, Zhen asked you a question, but you didn't answer. For some reason, I really want to know the answer today, so I called you to the palace. Sweat broke out on Shen Haoshi's forehead. This subordinate is slow-witted. I ask that His Majesty speak clearly. Jiang Sheng said, Have you used the fake death drug that my wife gave you that day? Cold sweat broke out all over Shen Haoshi's body. He choked out, Your Majesty? Jiang Sheng put away his smile and presented a rare display of seriousness. Haoshi, you have had a difficult journey. Shen Haoshi was completely dumbfounded. He was originally the reticent sort, but now he was so shocked that he simply lost all words. His reaction was just as Jiang Sheng expected. Most people wouldn't believe in soul transfers, and explaining would be troublesome. Just then, Shu Junyan arrived, and the task of explaining to Shen Haoshi fell to the national teacher. Shu Junyan didn't expect that the Son of Heaven would call him in the middle of the night just for this kind of thing. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had no choice but to narrate systematically and in complete detail about how Gu Fujiao's soul returned to his body upon his death. Hearing all this, Shen Haoshi was taken aback. He was completely struck dumb. This matter was simply too outrageous. But if he took it to be true, a lot of these strange things now made sense. Like how the new emperor's soul-loss disease suddenly improved, while Lin Qingyu reacted so casually to Gu Fujiao's death. How Lin Qingyu and the emperor could stand in front of Gu Fujiao's memorial tablet and do something like that. Can a soul change bodies? Was there really such a bizarre thing in the world? Of course there is, Jiang Sheng said. If you don't believe me, you can ask me some questions that only Gu Fujiao would know the answer to. After being dealt with successive shocks, Shen Haoshi was a little dazed, and it took a long time before he said. Before the siege, General Wu caught 2 cut-sleeve soldiers. Are you asking for the names of those 2 people? Zhang Xue and Lin Lan. Saying this, Jiang Sheng felt a heaviness in his heart. He made a note of asking Lin Qingyu later about the issue of compensation for the deceased soldiers. Shen Haoshi looked more and more dazed. Based on his expression, he probably beginning to doubt whether this world was even real. Jiang Sheng said again, Haoshi, you are the one who accompanied General Gu to the very end. Only you know what he said before he died. Can you tell me what he said? Shen Haoshi spoke instinctively. The general said he didn't want to die. He said that Dr. Lin was still waiting for him. Jiang Sheng shook his head. You remembered wrong. Before his death, General Gu said that he couldn't hold on any longer, but he didn't want for Imperial Physician Lin to waste his life. He only hoped that Imperial physician Lin could find someone to love again, to build a good relationship, someone he could grow old with. This is General Gu's last wish. If Imperial physician Lin were to truly grow old and die alone for him, he would not be able to die in peace. Jiang Shen sighed quietly. Zhen has heard from the national teacher that people who die with their eyes open cannot be reincarnated. They can only be reduced to wandering ghosts, unable even to enjoy the fragrance of incense. How truly wretched! Shu Junyan suddenly realized what he was after and said with a smile, His Majesty is wise. I had wondered why the Emperor chose not to tell the Empress Dowager the truth but confessed instead to Shen Gongzi. So, that is how it is. Shen, honest man, how she still couldn't wrap his head around it. But that's not what General Gu said. Jiang Shen smiled lightly. But he could have. Half a month later, General Gu's body was escorted to the capital by Shi Pei. Lin Qingyu and the people from the Ministry of Rites went out of the city to welcome them in person, receiving them with proper etiquette. When he had set off on this expedition, he was at the head of a powerful army sent off with music of solemn fervor. It was a stirring sight. When he returned, he was nothing but a single shattered corpse lying quietly. Shi Pei led a group of trusted aides to escort Gu Fuzhao's bier and coffin from the northwest all the way to the capital. When they saw the city gate, those hard-blooded men on the battlefield burst into tears, sighed and sobbed. General, we have finally brought you home. Gu Fuzhao had no father or mother, and no one knows the location of his ancestral grave. In the light of his meritorious service, the Empress Dowager allowed him to be buried in the imperial tomb. He was the first subject to enjoy this honor since the founding of the country. Shi Pei handed the Xingyan Jishao spear to Lin Qingyu, and he asked in a hoarse voice, Madam, would you like to take one last look at the general? Lin Qingyu stared at the coffin. He hesitated for a long time and then shook his head lightly. I won't be disturbing the general rest anymore. Let the Xingyan Jishao spear be buried with the general so as to let him quickly be at rest. There was no need to cling to the past. Obstinately sticking to the wrong course would only add to troubles. Jiang Shen hoped that he could move on, and he also needed to move on. He wanted to bid farewell to Gu Fuzhao formally, like he'd been done before for Lu Wancheng. From now on, the only person who would accompany him was Jiang Shen.